Episode 3. Young Love, Family Ties, and the Wedding That Changed My Life. I woke the next morning to the sound of a lone rooster crowing somewhere in the slum. The sky had only begun to lighten, the indigo of night giving way to a pale lavender. My body ached a little from another late night at the station, but my spirits were high. After all, Michael was due to come by again. I rolled up my thin bedding, tucked it neatly into a corner, and unlatched the door of my small shack. The humid air greeted me, tinged with the smell of rotting garbage from the nearby open drain, but also carrying a whiff of frying dosa batter from a neighbor's home. Such is life here, beauty and discomfort coexisting side by side. Before heading to the station, I stopped at the communal water tap, hoping to fill a plastic bucket. The line was already forming, women in saris, balancing brass pots on their hips, chatting in hushed tones. I waited my turn, nodding greetings to a few familiar faces. A small boy, barefoot and wide-eyed, carried 2 empty containers. I helped him lift one when it was our turn at the tap. Small acts of kindness. That's how we manage, day by day. After a quick splash of water on my face and a change into a clean, albeit faded, shirt, I wheeled my chai cart to the station platform. The sun was still shy, peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in mild oranges and pinks. I set up my cart in my usual spot beneath the banyan tree, fired up the kerosene stove, and began the comforting ritual of boiling water and measuring tea leaves. Morning customers and an early arrival. The first round of customers arrived with the daily passenger train from Chennai. Office workers with pressed shirts stepped out, rummaging for small change as they headed straight toward me. A group of college students hopped off next, animatedly discussing exams, hair still damp from a quick shower. I smiled and served them my best brew, ginger cardamom with a dash of milk and sugar. They slurped it down, sighing contentedly, as if this chai were their best defense against the trials of the day. Michael arrived soon after, wearing the same khaki backpack and an eager smile. Even at this hour, he looked ready for an adventure. He greeted me with a small wave. "Good morning, Gopal Anna." I handed him a cup of steaming chai. "Vanakkam, Michael G. You're early again." He grinned, taking a careful sip. I wanted to catch the atmosphere before the station gets too crowded. Thought I might get some photos of the sunrise and the locals on their daily commute. I nodded. "Smart idea. The light is beautiful at this time." He savored the chai. As good as ever. You mentioned last night that we'd speak about your wife and children today. Is now a good time, or should we wait until it's less busy?" I glanced at the thinning crowd. The biggest morning rush had already cleared, and the next train wouldn't arrive for nearly an hour. I shrugged. "Now is good, if you don't mind the occasional interruption from thirsty travelers." He laughed. "Not at all. I'll just grab a few quotes and we can pause whenever you need to serve." A quiet corner and the first spark. We moved to the edge of the platform, near the large banyan tree that had watched over me for decades. The broad trunk offered partial shade, and the morning sun filtered through the leaves in dappled patterns on the concrete. Michael pulled out his notepad and recorder, setting them on a small ledge. "So, Anna," he said softly, "tell me how you met your wife." I felt a mixture of warmth and nostalgia rise within me. It had been a while since I'd recounted those days. "Her name was Lakshmi," I began, my eyes drifting to the passing tracks. "She lived in a small village about 15 kilometers from here. I met her by chance. She came to visit a cousin who lived in the slum near the station. I still remember the first time I saw her." Michael leaned forward, pen at the ready. "Go on." "It was an afternoon," I said, "and I was selling tea as usual. The sun was blazing overhead. Business was slow, so I was leaning against my cart, half dozing. Then I saw this young woman in a simple blue sari standing with her cousin. She was waiting for a train to take her back to her village. The cousin came up to my cart to buy chai, and Lakshmi followed, curious. When she smiled, I felt something shift in my chest, like a click that told me, "Oh, there you are. That's the person meant for me." Michael smiled. Love at first sight? I chuckled. Perhaps. At least an attraction at first sight. But I was shy, so I just poured the chai and kept my head down. Yet I couldn't resist sneaking a few glances. How did she react? I shrugged, laughing softly at the memory. She was polite, said the chai was good, thanked me, but there was a little amusement in her eyes, as if she sensed my nerves. Just then, a passing vendor ambled over, requesting a cup of tea. I paused to serve him quickly, then returned to Michael. So that was the first spark, I continued. She came again a few times over the next couple of months to visit her cousin. Each time she'd pass by my cart. We'd exchange a few words. Small talk about the weather, about the station, about the dusty roads. But beneath that, I felt we both knew something deeper was unfolding. Michael jotted down notes. That's quite sweet. Did you ask her to marry you right away? I laughed, the sound echoing off the banyan's branches. Oh, no, no. This is India, my friend, especially back then. We had many traditions and social hurdles. My pride didn't let me believe she could be interested in a simple chai seller. Also, I had no family to make a formal approach. My parents were gone, and I was living on my own. Michael's brow furrowed in concern. That must have been a challenge. So what happened next? Family ties and negotiations. I sighed, recalling the complexities. Lakshmi's cousin noticed our mutual affection. She asked me one day, "Do you like my cousin?" I could barely speak, but I finally nodded. She told me that Lakshmi also liked me, but there was the matter of her parents. They wanted her to marry someone from their village, ideally with a small bit of land. And who was I? A nobody with a tea cart. Michael's eyes reflected empathy. That sounds daunting. Yes, I said. Yet Lakshmi was determined. She convinced her cousin to speak to her parents on our behalf. I also went along, trembling like a leaf, mind you, to meet them. Michael chuckled. How did that meeting go? I served a passenger who was rushing to catch a departing train, handing him a scalding cup of tea and taking his coins before turning back to Michael. Well, I said, wiping my hands on a rag. It was tense. Her father was a stern man, a farmer. Her mother kept glancing at me, measuring me from head to toe. I was sweaty from the journey. It was the peak of summer. But I managed to speak from my heart. I told them I had steady income, that I was responsible and had no vices. And I told them I'd do everything I could to make their daughter happy. Michael's voice softened. That must have been quite a risk. It was, I admitted. At the time, I didn't know if they'd laugh me out of the house or show me the door. But to my surprise, her father said, "At least you're honest. Let me think about it." Later, I learned Lakshmi had been very persuasive in private, telling them that she didn't mind if I was poor, as long as I was kind. A wedding under the scorching sun. Eventually, Lakshmi's parents gave in, though not without conditions. They insisted on a small ceremony in their village temple, meaning I had to gather enough money to pay for the wedding sari, some jewelry, even if minimal, and the feast for guests. I saved every rupee I could, I said. I worked extra hours, took on any side jobs, cleaning the station's waiting room, helping porters carry luggage for a small tip. My neighbors in the slum donated plates and utensils for the feast. Even the station master at the time gave me a bit of money, saying, "A wedding is a joyous occasion. Don't be shy to ask for help." Michael looked touched. The community really came together. They did, I confirmed. In small towns, when people see you as part of the fabric, they rally around you. So after a few months of preparation, the big day arrived. I leaned on my cart, a distant smile tugging at my lips. It was a scorching day, the sun beating down on the dry fields, but Lakshmi looked radiant in her red silk sari. Her cousin had done her hair with jasmine flowers, and her eyes sparkled. The temple was modest, a small shrine with stone pillars and a priest who knew half the village. We exchanged garlands, mine made from marigolds, hers from roses. Michael's pen was busy on the notepad. Did you have a lot of guests? By big city standards, no, but for us, it felt huge, maybe 70 or 80 people, mostly from her side of the family and a few folks from the station, the fruit seller, the newspaper vendor, the porter. They all crammed into a small open courtyard, sweating in the heat but smiling at the spectacle. The priest chanted the mantras, we circled the sacred fire, and that was that. We were husband and wife. He paused, letting the moment sink in. It must have felt surreal. In a way, yes, I replied. I never imagined I'd find a partner in this life, especially after losing my parents so young. Yet there we were, starting a new chapter under the watchful eyes of old village gods. Returning to the station as a married man. After serving another small group of customers, a family with 2 squirming children, I returned to our conversation. When we came back to Thirupaloor, we set up our home where I live now. It was even more modest back then, just a tiny corrugated tin shack with hardly any space. But Lakshmi lit it with her warmth. She kept it clean, always had some fresh flowers in a small tin vase. She'd cook simple meals, but they tasted like feasts to me. Michael smiled. She sounds wonderful. She was, I said, feeling a pang of sadness that she was no longer around. And she adapted to station life so easily. She'd sometimes help me wash cups, or she'd bring me lunch at the cart. Passengers got used to seeing her too. Some even teased us for being newlyweds, asking us to brew them wedding chai. Extra sweet, of course. He chuckled. I love how the station people seem so involved in each other's lives. That's the nature of a small station, I said. We see each other every day. We hear each other's joys and sorrows. It's like a big family with the trains as our clock. Trials and joys of early marriage. Michael checked his recorder. Would you mind sharing some of the challenges you faced in those early months or years? I took a moment to gather my thoughts. Money was always tight. We didn't have any savings to speak of, and the income from the chai cart varied with the seasons. Monsoon times were especially hard. People stayed away from the station unless absolutely necessary, so sales dropped. Our roof leaked. We argued sometimes, mostly about finances and the stress of it all. Michael's pen hovered. So how did you cope? I cracked a small grin. Whenever we were on the verge of a fight, Lakshmi would just hold my hand and say, "Remember why we got married in the first place?" And just like that, the tension would melt. Or I'd crack a joke, and she'd start laughing, scolding me for not taking things seriously. But I was serious, in my own way. I believed that laughter could carry us through the toughest times, the way a small lamp can chase away the darkness. He nodded thoughtfully. That's a beautiful philosophy. I learned it from Rahim Bai, in part, I continued, and also from my father's old saying, if you can laugh in the face of adversity, you've already won half the battle. It doesn't solve your problems, but it gives you the spirit to tackle them. The birth of my daughters. Michael flipped to a fresh page in his notepad. When did your children come into the picture? I beamed, recalling the day I first heard I was going to be a father. Our first daughter, Valley, was born about 2 years after our marriage. Oh, how nervous I was when Lakshmi went into labor. We couldn't afford a private hospital, so we went to the government one in town. The paint was peeling off the walls, the beds were few. Lakshmi endured so much pain, but when we finally heard that first cry, all the worry vanished. Holding that little bundle in my arms, I felt an indescribable joy and terror at the same time, knowing I was responsible for her future. Michael listened intently, eyes focused. And the second daughter? Radha came 3 years later, I said. She was even more of a surprise, a smaller baby, but with a loud wail. Suddenly, we were 4 in that tiny shack, but Lakshmi managed everything so gracefully. She'd cradle Radha in one arm, stir a pot of sambar with the other, and still find time to make sure Valley was dressed for school. Michael laughed softly. She must have been a formidable multitasker. She was unstoppable, I affirmed, my voice soft with admiration. We couldn't afford a babysitter, so sometimes she brought the girls to the station when they were toddlers. They'd toddle around near my cart, playing with empty cups, giggling whenever a train thundered past. The regular travellers adored them, would offer sweets or little toys. Lessons in love and laughter. I paused to serve another flurry of passengers, mostly day labourers returning from a shift. As the train rattled away, I glanced at Michael, who seemed lost in thought. "Your story is remarkable, Anna," he finally said. "You and Lakshmi built a life out of so little, yet you speak of it as if it was abundant." I shrugged, smiling. Because it was abundant, in love, in laughter, in small joys. Sometimes we measure wealth only in money. But what about the happiness that comes from a kind word, a shared meal, or the sight of your child learning to walk? That's a wealth that can't be counted in rupees. Michael scribbled something quickly in his notepad, then set it down. That's exactly what I want to capture in my article. The richness of everyday life, especially in places people overlook. A bit of humour and irony. Just then, the station master, Subramani, came strolling by, adjusting his belt over a protruding belly. He eyed the recorder, then eyed me. "Gopal, Anna, are you going to be on TV soon?" Michael grinned. "We're just recording his life story for an article, sir." Subramani harumphed. "Make sure you mention the punctuality of our trains," he joked sarcastically, glancing at the station clock that was perpetually 5 minutes behind. I laughed. Yes, yes. Punctuality. We'll be sure to highlight the irony." Subramani walked off, muttering something about how the next train was running late. Again, Michael and I exchanged amused glances. "See, irony is woven into our daily lives," I remarked. "We Indians complain about train delays, yet we continue to rely on them. The entire station is a microcosm of contradictions, a place of goodbyes and hellos, waiting and rushing, tears and laughter." Michael nodded. "And in the midst of it all stands you, pouring tea with a grin." I shrugged. "It's my small role in this grand play." A dusk revelation. As the day wore on, Michael went off to gather more notes, interview a few passengers, and photograph the station from different angles. The hours passed in their usual station rhythm. By dusk, the sky burned orange, and I lit a small lantern by my cart. A warm breeze ruffled the hair of passers-by, carrying the scent of fried snacks from a nearby stall. Michael returned, looking tired but satisfied. "Anna, I took some incredible shots of the station at sunset, the shadows on the tracks, the silhouettes of travellers. It's quite beautiful." I nodded, busy pouring chai into a clay cup for the night guard. "This station might be run down, but the light can make it look magical at times." He waited until I finished serving, then switched on his recorder for a final question of the day. "You've given me a wonderful picture of your courtship, marriage, and family beginnings. But what about conflict? Every marriage has its ups and downs. Any stories that stand out?" I handed the night guard his tea and collected a few coins. Once the guard ambled away, I turned my attention back to Michael. "We had our share of quarrels, yes. Money was always tight, and sometimes I'd come home late, exhausted, and a little snappy. Lakshmi would vent her frustrations about the leaky roof or a sick child who needed medicine we couldn't afford. In those moments, the reality of poverty could feel crushing. We'd argue, but we never let the sun rise on our anger. By morning, one of us would always break the tension, often through a joke or a silly gesture." Michael gave a gentle smile. "Those small acts of reconciliation can mean the world." "They do," I agreed. Looking back, I realize how crucial those moments were. We could have let resentment fester, but we chose instead to make light of our hardships. We faced them hand in hand. That's what kept our marriage strong. Wrapping up the day. Night fully set in, and the station lights buzzed, attracting moths to their artificial glow. Fewer travellers roamed the platform, though a late train to Madurai was expected soon. I began packing up extra cups and wiping down my cart. Michael tucked his recorder away, slipping it into his backpack. "Thank you for sharing so much today, Anna," he said, voice resonating with genuine gratitude. "Your story of meeting Lakshmi and building a life together, it's heartwarming. I'm sure my readers will relate to the universal themes of love, struggle, and laughter." I gave him my signature grin. If it can bring even a little hope or warmth to someone, it's worth sharing. He nodded, then looked away, as if searching for the right words. "I know there's more to tell about your daughters growing up and eventually, well, about losing Lakshmi, but I don't want to rush you." A twinge in my chest reminded me of the sorrow that still lingered, even decades later. "We'll get there," I said quietly. "One story at a time. After all, isn't life just a series of small stories woven together?" Michael seemed to mull over that, nodding. "Indeed it is. Tomorrow perhaps we can continue with those later chapters." "Tomorrow," I echoed, bowing my head in agreement. With that, he left for his lodge, camera bouncing softly against his chest. I wheeled my cart off the platform and back toward my shack. The faint glow of the kerosene lamp inside beckoned me. Raja, the station dog, followed for a few steps before settling down near the foot of the banyan tree as though standing guard for the night. Nighttime reflections. Inside my shack, I lit the lamp, the flame casting flickering shadows on the corrugated walls. My home was as humble as ever, but for a moment I could almost sense Lakshmi's presence, the warmth she had brought still lingering in every corner. Sometimes I thought I could still hear her laughter echo, see the shape of her sitting cross-legged on the floor, chopping vegetables for dinner, or feel her soft hands pat my shoulder, telling me everything would be all right. I spread out my bedding, lay down, and let my thoughts drift. I recalled our wedding day under the scorching sun, the uncertain yet hopeful looks of her parents, the hearty congratulations from the station community. My mind travelled to the times Lakshmi and I would watch the trains pass at night, a rare moment of calm when our children were asleep. We'd sit on the platform, whispering about our dreams, maybe one day owning a small concrete house or sending the girls to a better school. Even though we never fully realized all those dreams, life gave us other gifts, moments of togetherness, laughter amidst adversity, and a deep sense of belonging. That was Lakshmi's legacy, teaching me that love can flourish anywhere, even in a cramped shack by a noisy train station, so long as you water it daily with kindness. As I drifted off, I remembered how she would say, "Gopal, every train that leaves the station is like a passing worry. Let it go, and another will come. But if you hold on to your smile, you'll always find a way through." I smiled to myself in the darkness, comforted by her memory. Tomorrow I would share more with Michael, dive deeper into the joys and sorrows that shaped me. But for tonight, I let the gentle hum of the station lull me to sleep, content in the knowledge that my story, our story, was finding new life in the ears of a curious Australian journalist.